Must ask anything. It's a blank check today. Ask anything. That which you think is absurd, we want to hear it. So that at least you don't go out of this place with a misconception or a misunderstanding. We must be able to entangle a lot of things. And we are praying for a stronger church after this, where we will be able at least to share the views and have the same mind. Thank you so much. We will just want to stand. She will give us a stanza. Let us stand as we sing. Let's stand as we sing.
Let's open Christ in Song 144, Higher Grounds. I am praising the upward way, as I'm gay. Still praise God. Lord,
Let us pray. Our dear Heavenly Father, I want to thank you this afternoon for you have given us yet another opportunity to come before your throne and learn from you. How we pray that all the questions that we have, may they be answered today. And how we pray that our families, where we come from, may they be happy homes. We pray for divine guidance as we are getting to this session. May you lead us until all has been said and done. In Jesus' name, we pray, amen.
Happy Sabbath, church, once again. Please allow me to remove the jacket. I struggle to concentrate if I'm wearing a jacket. Let me just take a survey. Uh, how many of you are not married? There was one in that went up earlier than all of us. Seriously, how many of you are not married?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. How many of you have been married for at least no, who have been married for 1 year and below? Okay. Uh, o- okay. 5 years downward. Okay. Okay. How many of you have been married for 15 years and above? Amen. Oh, okay. Okay. Maybe 30 years and above. Oh, okay. 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 Let me just check one more thing. Uh, don't, Elder, don't look at Mrs. Moyo. It's just an easy question. When did you get married? No, no. 86, it could be January, it could be December, it could be when did you get married? You are not specific. I need a specific date, 18 April on Independence Day. Okay. Okay, okay. That one is easy to remember. Pastor, when, when did you get married, Pastor? Uh,
No, at least the best thing is this one I haven't forgotten. Yeah, sometimes I do. Sometimes I do. And if the children, yes, I sometimes forget. But this one, the anniversary one, yeah, it's the 2nd of August. And it was 1992. What time? It was the whole day. Yeah, yeah, it was almost something to one because he was coming from Bulawayo to Lupane. So we're very far away. Yes.
Didn't hear. I was married in 1969. Oh, I am 50. I'm 56.
okay. Fine. I
Okay. Yeah. Can we stop discussing? Sorry, sorry. Yeah, they keep discussing the length of your marriage, but that's not the topic. So this afternoon, how many of you have questions from the presentation this morning? The sermon as well. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, I want to check whether I must do another presentation or you want me to go straight to question time. The one question time. Okay. Okay. So that's fine. Let's start with question time. So we'll start with my brother. Yes. I was going to use this as okay, we've got a roving mic. So give him the roving mic.
All right. Good afternoon, Judge.
Good afternoon.
Can I stand? My question goes like this. In the morning, you spoke about different types of marriages. One was civil marriage and the other types that you gave.
Yes.
And I just wanted to understand on the assets part of things. So as an example, if, say, a man or a woman gets married.
That's fine. I've understood you.
You've understood. Yes. On the assets part, yeah. So then
so I should do this the second presentation I was supposed to do.
Oh, okay. All right. All right.
Well, it's not showing. Okay, that's fine. Let me get a second question. I'll decide if he's able to beam the laptop. I might do a presentation. It's 20 minutes, so it's not far. Okay, Mr. Zondo. Sorry, can you give Mr. Zondo the mic?
Thank you. I wanted to find out from the Bible, where do we get the age limit for marriage of consent from the Bible? And
okay.
And the second question is, if we're looking at it from the SDA side, abantu abahlala emakhaya who were married kudala using customary, how do we recognize them now since there's a new act?
Okay. Okay. The first one is an easy one. There is no verse in the Bible that will give you the age of marriage for people. So we take it from civil law. So the concept is where civil law conflicts with the Bible prevails. But where the Bible does not have a provision and the civil law has got it and it doesn't conflict with any principle in the Bible, we can use civil law. So the age of marriage is 18 years. Right. And then we come to those that were married in the olden times who were married during the African Marriages Act. Okay. What the church did or what the church has done is to encourage them. They've had seminars where they go and speak to the people in the rural areas, try to encourage them or show them what they must do, which is to convert their marriages into civil law marriages. So these seminars have been done. The church has been doing an education exercise. But some situations, Pastor will correct me, there are some situations where the person is so old and they were just married in terms of customary law where they didn't go to a marriage officer. And maybe the woman is 90, the husband is 95. You know, I think there's been a moratorium or something like that. It's an understanding, but the encouragement still remains. If the gospel found you in a particular situation, now that you know the correct position, regularize your marriage. So I also have been asked to go various places where we educate our members of the correct position so that they can regularize their position. Yeah. My brother.
According to your presentation in the morning, you mentioned that marriage officers are supposed to work for free.
Yes.
Right? But here, particularly within the Zimbabwe West Union Conference, our marriage officers charge us something like $80, $100, right? So the question is why? And also it looks like expensive because if you can just go and get your license from Trade Gold and for $25 and get it done and dusted, why do we have to pay such a high price for our marriage officers within the church?
You shouldn't be paying anything. So what we have done in I think it was in February or March this year, we actually had a seminar for all pastors where we educated them that they are not supposed to charge. So they should know now, right? So if they are still carrying out, charging you, I think you're 1 year old in marriage, so they didn't know when you got married. Now they know. Yeah, but don't go there and ask for a refund because they've used the money. Yeah. So now they know they are not supposed to charge. In fact, the way, if you remember the way the act, how it's put, they are not even supposed to accept a gift or a reward. What you pay for are the disbursements, the expenditure. If you want me to come and marry you in Wanke, you have to pay for my transport to Wanke and my accommodation and my food, not a fee. You're paying, you're facilitating. That's the difference. But don't go and ask for a refund, yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to add to what he was mentioning. Apparently, people think the pastors are charging them. Yes. But what they have done is they've already been able to calculate what it will cost them to do your marriage, to finalization. And then they ask you, this is the kind of what can work out. For instance, of course, as he has already alluded to the aspect of the transportation, it's upon you. You can't expect them to transport themselves. For accommodation, if you have actually said, come to England and marry me there, you have to fly them. For whatever accommodation expenses, you have to do it. And that is what they have been doing. Of course, unless if it has come out the other way around, even the church itself has not authorized the pastors to charge you for that. It has not. And of course, they will be saying, after finishing your marriage, they will have to take your certificates, sometimes some of them to Harare, the records, whatever it is. Then that is what also they would always be mentioning. But if it was completed around here, then they would not do that. But others, many of them would always work around that. The church on its own, as a system, does not charge members for marriages. But the members bear the cost of getting married. That is what is happening.
Thank you, Pastor, for clarifying. No, not no. You come later. Okay, Mrs. Falcon.
Yeah. I don't know how far true it is. It says Zimbabwe's Marriage Act. How do you call it? 17 is a landmark unified law that replaced the older acts, bringing all marriage types, civil, customary, civil partnerships under one roof, promoting gender equality by granting equal status and rights, banning child marriage, recognizing unregistered customary unions with registration requirements, and introducing civil partnerships for same-sex couples, aiming for a single clearer marriage system with equal recognition for all unions. Is it true?
No. There are some, most of the statements are true, except same-sex marriages, they are not recognized. It's not in the act. South Africa does recognize same-sex marriages, but not Zimbabwe. It doesn't. In fact, I think there is a specific section in the act which talks about it being a union between a male and the female. Yeah. Okay. I'll just take one last hand. Sandile, you will have to ask a question at some point. Yes. Oh, okay.
Good afternoon, church. The
in the morning we talked about what is written in the Bible. It says it is not good for a man to stay alone. What if you don't have anyone to approach, especially to ladies? There is no one who approaches you. You stay in the church until you get, it's not your wish. So for you to cut off this word of do not stay alone, is it okay for me? Outside they see me that I'm okay, but I am in the church as Adventist. I know one is an Adventist, which is Adventist says get married to the same faith.
Yes.
But what if I don't have until I'm of age of women? What will happen to me? Will you send me if I go there?
Yes, we'll censure you. Yeah, we will. There is no age limit at the other end. There is an age limit at the bottom, 18. But at the other end, even if you are 90, you can get married, right? So you are not too late. And then, in terms of what you do, Mrs. Simlingo, I want to put you on the spot. You can assist these youngsters. If you see that they seem not to be seeing you. Hey, Pastor, think about no. Yeah, I'll give you your own question. Your question will be, if the young ladies keep rejecting you, you are trying and trying, what should you do as a young man? And on the other side, Mrs. Mlingo, you dress well, you try to sing as loud as yeah. And you volunteer to be a Sabbath school superintendent. They call for Dorcas ladies. You are there, but hey, nothing is happening. They can't see you. What do you do as a young lady? Maybe they just need tips there. I don't know who wants to start, whether it's the pastor or whether it's Mrs. Mlingo. Yes, pastor.
Andilabona umama uNsunduzele. And I think it will help us a lot. It's good that we have a number of us here who are not yet married. The challenge that we have is to take matters into our hands. The issue of marriage is not humanly designed. It's God's providence. So if we work with God, we must know that at least we will go through some kind of either a trying time or a waiting period, or maybe eventually to discover that we are not necessarily cut out for that. We could be pursuing what is not ours. So we need really to be in the spiritual realm to appreciate what God desires of us. So we cannot take matters into our hands like what our sister was saying, where abamboni lapha ngcono mboni wephandle. And it was a very good response what the elder said. If you go outside, we will definitely censure you. Because that is the principle that is there. So it's very important for us to appreciate. You could have maybe tried a lot of things here and there. Maybe you are trying them on your own. Allow the Lord to lead you. Marriage is not an issue of mankind per se, but is an issue of God guiding us. So let's allow him either even to select for us, and even the time frame, it's him who knows. You might be thinking of, no, it must be today, and yet the Lord is saying, no, maybe later on. I remember some years back, we got, we witnessed a wedding, that was 87. We witnessed a wedding at Makokova, a 56-year-old woman getting married to a 75-year-old man. Anything is possible with God. But the challenge is, are we able to wait upon him and allow him at least to guide us and direct us? Yeah, he is asking here, you remember those that were there? Umfundisi Mataba got remarried at what? He was already 90 or 95? He was 90. thereabouts. He was already that age. So anything is possible. The challenge is we want to take matters into our hands. So let's allow the Lord to guide us. Let's allow him at least to work with us. It will be possible. Otherwise, the other element that we need also to appreciate, it's not for everyone. So we must be able to at least to discover how the Lord has cut our way, so that at least we can stick to that.
Okay. Mrs. Mlem.
Thank you very much. I hope I'll answer your question. Marriage is not something where you apply and say, next year I want to get married. I must sing so well so that I can be heard. I must dress so well so that I can be seen. No, 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 no. Be yourself, be humble, be happy with people, smile with people. Somebody will be saying, how I wish I could stay with that lady. Then you see them coming to you. You may even have problem choosing. 5 of them have come. Who do I choose now? So be steady. Know that the time is not ours. God's time is His. He knows where He has placed this lady or this man for you. He knows the day, He knows the time. So just be patient. As you have heard, even those who are over 80, I'll be 80 soon. So I can still get married. So yours is just to be patient. I don't know if
Yeah.
if I answered.
Yes, no, thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Simblinger. So you've got tips there, Andrew. Mr. Zond. And no, I know you are married, but I'm just saying there were some tips there. You can we used to encourage associations like couple singles association. You attend those and you can see each other there, aren't you, Elton? Yes. And visit other churches. At times the other problem can be our conduct. You can conduct yourself in a particular way which is unbecoming, unattractive. And when you want to get married, you expect to be seen. Your reputation can precede you. So correct behavior from the onset can also ensure that you get seen earlier. Yeah. Okay. I see the hands held. I see you. Let me just do this quick presentation. Then we will then take all questions until the pastor says it's time to stop. Okay. So Elder, help me to present this one. So marriage and the law. This is just part 2. I'll just it's because he asked about the property, so he can then come in with his other questions. I'll just move. It just starts from the previous one. So in the morning we're talking about the marriage laws in Zimbabwe. I think we talked about the Marriage Act. We talked about, we did touch on the Matrimonial Causes Act. We did touch on the Married Persons Property Act. And I said I would just touch on the other two, the Married Persons Property Act and the Matrimonial Causes Act, so that we have a 360-degree knowledge of the law. Those who didn't see this, just a reminder, I will repeat this. There was a time that I did have hair on my head. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Mrs. Ncube is still as beautiful as she was when I got married to you. Okay. So let's just look at the Married Persons Property Married Matrimonial Causes Act and the Married Persons Property Act, and we look at the consequences of a marriage. You know, the type of marriage you enter into also determines the rights that flow from that marriage. So the first one is the obvious one. If you are married under civil law, it's monogamy, one wife, one husband. What that means is each partner in the marriage is entitled to companionship, love, comfort, and exclusive sexual intercourse, right? And what that means is if you are married in terms of the civil law, you are entitled to sue for adultery damages. If your spouse prays, you can sue the other woman, you can sue the other man for adultery damages because you are entitled to exclusive intercourse with your spouse, and you're entitled to companionship, love, and comfort. So, you know, when he or she is consorting with another man or another woman, you can sue that particular woman. So this is just, I took it on the internet. That's Obama. You know, his naughty eye is looking at something. I'll leave you to. But Elton Dogo, you can confirm you can't sue for that. You can't. No harm done. Okay. Then on the property side, if you are married under all marriages actually in Zimbabwe, the property that is acquired during the marriage is acquired separately. In terms of the Married Persons Property Act of 1929, all marriages in Zimbabwe are out of community of property unless you sign an antenuptial contract prior to the marriage, making it in community of property. So they are out of community of property. Each person administers their own community in the marriage. In South Africa, it's actually the reverse. All marriages in South Africa are in community of property unless you sign an antenuptial contract making them out of community of property. It's actually the reverse. So we have done antenuptial contracts are done by lawyers. We do those, and you sign before the marriage, and you make the marriage in community of property. What else? So, of course, what changes is death or divorce, because there are different considerations that take place. Then on children, if you are married under civil law, according to the Guardianship of Minors Act, the parents of a minor, whether married or otherwise, shall exercise their rights of guardianship and custody in consultation with each other. So both parents are guardians, both parents are custodians if you are married in terms of the civil law marriage. You know, but when the parents are not living together as man and wife, the custodial parent shall exercise all guardianship rights in relation to the minor in his or her custody, unless the non-custodial parent, by virtue of a court order, is required to be consulted on any issue in connection with the guardianship of the minor. So what it simply means is that if you are but you are living separately, the one who has got custody of the child he exercises all custodial rights and exercises all guardianship rights, right? Unless there is a court order saying otherwise. And then both parents have a duty to support the minor. Remember, in the morning, I was saying in terms of the law, Section 6 of the Married Persons Marriage Act 5:17. The partners to the marriage have equal rights and equal obligations, right? So what that means, as far as children are concerned, it's not just the man who is supposed to maintain the child or pay school fees, medical aid, and whatever. Both parents have a duty to support the child. Yeah. So let's not expect the man to be the one to do everything for the child in terms of the act, at least. Then support our upkeep. Both parties have the obligation of mutual support for each other. I've just mentioned this: equal rights, equal obligations during the subsistence and this dissolution of the marriage. So in terms of the law, as long as you are married in terms of the civil law, the wife has a duty to support the husband, material, and the husband has a duty to support the wife. So it's across the board. You can't say, you are the man, eyami imali ngeyami, eyakho ngeyethu. Okay. Okay. Yeah, she says yes. She is not aware of the law. Now she is. Okay. I talked about divorce in the morning. Let's look at death. On the death of one of the parties, the surviving spouse is the main beneficiary of the deceased estate. What is important there is to appreciate that we are talking about a situation where there is no will. So if there is no will, you and you die, you call it dying intestate. When you die intestate, the main beneficiary is the surviving spouse, right? So the surviving spouse gets the matrimonial home, including the household goods and effects, plus a child's share of the rent and residue of the estate. Okay, let me explain that. So, if there is no will, the man dies, and the couple had 2 children, right? So the man is dead. He's survived by the wife and what? 2 children. So the wife would then be entitled to the household, to the matrimonial home, and she's also entitled to the household goods and effects. That includes the cars and whatever in the household, right? Not in the businesses, in the household, the family cars and whatever. She's entitled because they are part of household goods and effects. So she gets the matrimonial home and all the household goods and effects. Then on the rest of the estate, because some other properties and whatever, or shares and whatever, the wife is then entitled to a child's share. Meaning, remember, the husband is survived by the wife and 2 children. So she then becomes a child for purposes of the rest of the estate. So in fact, there are then what? 3 children. She's entitled to 1/3 of the rest of the estate. The children are then entitled to 1/3 each. Should I repeat it again? Eh? Okay. So the husband is survived by a wife and what? 2 children. So the wife gets the matrimonial home and everything in the matrimonial home, right? Then what is not in the matrimonial home, we call it rest and residue. The wife is then entitled to a child's share. For purposes of that, she's deemed to be a child. So if there are 2 children, she's then the 3rd, and she gets 1/3 of the rest of the estate. If there are 4 children, she becomes the 5th. She gets 1/5 of the rest of the estate. It's clear. Okay. If there are no children, the surviving spouse gets the matrimonial home, including household goods and effects, plus a half share of the rest of the estate. So that's why she is the main beneficiary. The other half share goes to the brothers and sisters of the deceased spouse. Eh? Okay. Then the domicile, when you get married under civil law, you acquire the domicile of the husband, and you assume his surname. Domicile is very difficult to explain. you acquire what is regarded as your normal home country. I think that's the key. That's the easiest way to explain it. So if you are married to a Zimbabwean, you are regarded as being domiciled in Zimbabwe. Your home country is regarded as Zimbabwe. So if you get married to a Tswana person, your domicile changes. You are regarded as ordinarily resident in Botswana. You acquire the husband of your domicile. Then or the domicile of your husband. Then you can acquire the surname of your husband, but you don't have to. You can still be called by your maiden name, even if you are married. Or, like the modern women like to do, they will start being called Kumalo Ncube, the hyphen, the double-barreled surnames. You are allowed to adopt that. But ordinarily, you just assume your husband's surname. Okay, the consequences of the customary law marriages, they are almost the same as that of civil law, even on divorce, even on guardianship, custody, and support. They are basically the same. But the divorce is done by the magistrate's court. The major difference is on death. You remember we were saying the wife or the surviving spouse is the main beneficiary under civil law, but under customary law, she is one of the beneficiaries. I'm assuming the man dies earlier than the wife. The formula is complicated. If the deceased person is survived by one spouse and one or more children, then the surviving spouse gets the house she lived in together with household goods and effects of that house, and a child's share of the remainder of the estate, almost the same as civil law. If it's one spouse and one or more children. If the deceased person is survived by two or more wives, then each of the wives gets the house they were living in. But if they were living together in one house, they get joint ownership. So all the wives are taken care of. They get joint ownership. But if you are like, I think Zuma has got, is it Zuma? Who's got various palaces. So they would get if they were in Zimbabwe, they would get their palaces as their own, where they are staying. Then they share 1/3 of the estate between them. Remember, that side they want you, but this side you share. Then they get a child's share of the rest on residue of the estate. So marriage is one of the institutions that survived the fall. We touched on that in the morning. The other institution is the Sabbath. The type of marriage determines what fruits you enjoy from that marriage, whether it be civil or customary law marriage. Also, the Married Persons Property Act determines the proprietary regime of the marriage. But as Seventh-day Adventists, though, we are subject to a higher call. And this is something that I will emphasize. We are subject to a higher call. It is what the civil law states, but we are subject to the laws of God. Our allegiance is to God, and the principles enunciated in Ephesians 5, verse 25, govern our relationship with our wives and with our husbands. The verses enjoin us to love our wives as Christ loved the church. Ephesians 5:25 says, husbands, love your wife, just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for her. And then Ephesians 5:22 and 24 says, wives, submit to your husbands as unto the Lord. Just as the church is subject to Christ, so let the wives be to their own husbands in everything. And for us, everything then should flow from that. So that's the short presentation on marriages or property regime. So I can take your further question from that. Okay, so give him the mic and then we can.
Good afternoon. Yes. So I'm trying to understand on the customary and registration of the marriage part. So let's say that is now ended, or when they do the civil. I'm trying to understand on the assets part, how are they shared, or who owns these things during a divorce or when the marriage is now ended, if they went via the route of the customarian as well as the civil route. That's what I'm trying to understand.
Okay.
If it's the same
Okay.
as, okay.
So fortunately, at least on divorce, it wouldn't change much. Even if you are married under customary law or under civil law, still the Matrimonial Causes Act will apply. So there are factors that are taken into account: the duration of the marriage, the contribution of each of the parties, the age of the parties, and so on and so on. They apply whether customary or civil. To answer your question, maybe correctly, I would then say, if you convert your marriage from customary to civil, it doesn't matter that at one point you are customary. What is considered is the time you divorced, what type of marriage were you falling under? So the past is history. Remember, we said the civil law marriage, the customary law marriage, once you have converted it to civil law, it's superseded by the civil law marriage. It ceases to exist. And for purposes of the dissolution of the marriage, you are deemed to have been married under civil law from the onset. And the distribution is in accordance with that. Yes,
that division, how does that work in terms of like pre-marital assets and post-marital assets?
Okay. Yeah. In terms of prenup, rarely do you find a person married under customary law coming to ask for a prenuptial agreement. They never, customary law, it just says your mindset is completely different. So they never. In my how many years as a lawyer? I think 35 years. I've never drafted an antenuptial contract or prenuptial contract for someone married under customary law. They can, but they never do. Yeah. In terms of whether it applies in Zimbabwe or elsewhere, if you've signed that antenuptial contract or prenup contract, it governs your whole property regime. Yeah, it governs your whole property regime. So if we have said it's in community of property, whether my property is in Botswana or whatever, that's what we have said. That's a contractual agreement. And that's how we have agreed as between the two of us. So it applies everywhere. Okay, what was the other question? Okay, I'm not hearing you, but I think what you are saying is what happens with assets that you acquired before. Yes, and then you divorce. Are they brought into account on divorce or not? Right. So look at it this way. You've got the Married Persons Property Act of 1929, which says all marriages are out of community of property. So from the very onset, you are acquiring each, right? So ordinarily, what you acquired before the marriage belongs to whoever acquired it because it's out of community of property. But what can happen? What can happen? It's yours. Okay, there is a starting point. When they do the formula, there is a starting point. His, hers. Then you consider the factors. So if, for example, you talk about contributions, this is registered in your name, but I contributed to its acquisition, or its renovation or whatever. And in terms of the splitting, you can actually take what was acquired by you before the marriage in order to equalize the equation. But you are equalizing the equation.
considering the contributions and so on and so on. But the starting point would have been his. I don't know whether I'm answering you. Yeah. Okay. Mrs. Runganga, Zonda, I see your hand. If I forget it, please remind me. Yeah, if pastor says it's over, I'll still allow you. Unless if he's going to remove me from the church register, you know. Okay. Mrs. Runganga.
Okay, I have a question on, it's actually current. I have a cousin brother of mine. The wife passed away last year in November. And before, the aunt to my cousin brother bought a house for them. Then the title deeds are in the name of the wife and the husband, like Esther and Dominic.
Okay.
So right now, I'm just asking who belongs to the property as far as, because the in-laws think that also they have a share on the properties. So we're asking what should be done exactly.
Okay.
And the children, the brother is still alive, but the wife is the one who passed away.
Okay. So, and there is no will. Okay. So in the starting point, one assumes they were married under the civil law. Sorry? It's customary. Okay. So if it's customary, it's a different, and it's not the matrimonial home, or it's the matrimonial home. Yeah. Yeah, no, it doesn't matter. Okay, it can start as a gift, but if it's a matrimonial home, it's a matrimonial home. So, and what would then happen in that situation? The husband would then acquire the half share of the wife because it's a matrimonial home in a customary law marriage. And then the husband would be entitled to, I think it's a child's share of the rest and residue.
So in other words, we are saying the in-laws have no rights towards the property,
Yes.
right?
Yes, yes. But I'm not charging any legal fees for that. So, because you see, when you ask a specific question, the writer, or I'll put we call it a disclaimer or a caveat. I need more facts, and when you are face to face, I'll get more. But ordinarily, on what you say, the in-laws generally don't have any right, whatever, to a matrimonial property. They generally don't. It's the husband and wife who are entitled, and children, if one dies without a will. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Elder Machalaka.
Thank you. I have a question on the morning presentation. You talked about. I have a question on the morning presentation. You talked about divorce by abandonment.
Okay.
And you kept referring to divorce by abandonment by the unbelieving. So my question is, what about the believers? Can believers divorce by abandonment? 1, 2, what is the duration or time period, or is it there if it exists?
Okay. It said, what are my thoughts on what I was trying to think about divorce by abandonment? We will send the elders to the believing spouse to come back home. What were you, what were you saying? The second question.
Or the duration? You say abandonment. Is there a time period for abandonment? Or do you look at factors, or what are the factors? Yes, but you kept emphasizing in the morning, I think you got it from the church manual.
Yes.
When you were talking about adultery and then abandonment. But you always, with abandonment, you always seemed to emphasize that it's abandonment by the unbeliever. And you got it from 1 Corinthians chapter 7,
Yeah,
where it says, if the unbelieving
husband
Okay.
decides to leave. But then my question is, what about the believers? Can a believing husband leave his wife and then she takes it as abandonment? Then
Yeah. The pastor will correct me. I will answer this one from my own understanding, because it's not in the church manual, but I'm extracting or deducing from the church manual. So if you look from First Corinthians, that verse that you quoted, so the way it's phrased in the church manual, it makes it apparent to me that it's talking about okay, I almost said an infidel, but it's talking about one who is not a believer. So the abandonment by a non-believer, according to Paul, according to First Corinthians, entitles you to a divorce. But the abandonment of by a believer does not, because the church manual does not say so. First Corinthians also does not say so. So you'd have a situation where you actually live separately, but you are not entitled to divorce. That's my own interpretation of the church manual. But I'm subject to what the pastor agrees with me. So at least two of us agree. Yeah. Was there a second question I missed? No. Or the duration of the separation? It falls away. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's fine. Zondo, maybe in case you end up forgetting, then I'll go to the youths. Sandile has a burning question.
Thank you for the presentation.
Yes.
And I think the church has a very big role in this issue. I'm sure even someone married didn't know most of these things, especially linking to church. I think the issue of equal rights, issue of community out of community of property, it's very important. And I think some of these things, especially from your field of law, I don't know why don't we encourage people to do trusts, which protect from a lot of these things. If people do family trusts, it would help people even as they go into these things. Because when things disintegrate, we're in the fighting mode and kids suffer in the process. But if you are still lovey-dovey, you can agree to do proper things and do trust and all those things. Then another point which I think is important, which you mentioned in the morning, issue of counseling. I think the counseling that church does, those 8 hours, I don't think it's enough with all these things. I think some of these things can be ironed out in counseling, so you know which but so at times we assume so many things when we get into marriage. Then when you sele phakathi simangala ukuthi then omunye akuthenga imali ngithenga ibizo likasuka kanti sokungokwakhe ingakwazi mina ngithi ayisithenga sonke. So then you realize that because ukuthi hayi njengoba usezweni lakhe ngokwakhe kumbe uthenga ngokwakhe or mina ngithe imali yami sizabe siyalima ngayo eyakho sizabe sithenga izinto. So end of the day we need this information, especially maybe the youths who are not yet married. Then my question was, anti lema prenup, can they be changed after marriage or they can't be changed? Then my other question was, can you convert civil to customary?
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the commendation. I think, yes, it's important for us to understand these topics. It's important for us to be empowered. And the Planned Giving and Trust Services Department of Zouk is meant to deal with that. So we go in churches, except City Center Church, because they don't want us here, and educate them on trust, on wills, but really on planning the estates, because it's important to plan your estates when you are still in love, right? Than when pots are flying all over the place. So it's something that we do. in City Church when they are. I think the pastor has already kickstarted this by saying, "Let's come and talk about marriages and the position of the church." So the Plant and Giving Trust Services can do that for the church. So we'll continue with these exercises as long as we are invited. I happen to be the chairman of the committee on that. We've gone as far as Colin Bond, whatever, to doing all those things. Rwanda, we've been there and so on. I must remember your questions now. So prenup, antenuptial, it's antenuptial contract. I think, can it be altered? Okay, I'll answer it from a contractual point of view, because in the it's not there. But an antenuptial contract or a prenuptial contract, as it is called in other jurisdictions, is a contract between two parties who are married to each other, and it's then registered with the deeds office. You do a deed of it's a deed that you register with the deeds office. So, if by consent the parties to the contract agree to cancel that contract, it can be cancelled because it's consensual. But if one wants and the other doesn't, it can't cancel, no matter how the other one screams. Yeah, they can kick and do whatever, it can't be changed. But it's only if both of them agree to cancel that deed, it will be then cancelled, and will lodge a deed of cancellation with the deeds office. Did I miss another? Oh, can you change from civil to customary? Why would you? No, you can't. There is no provision for it in the law. Yeah, there is none. There is none. Yeah, you can upgrade, you can't downgrade. At least there is no provision for it in the law. That a wife who is married under civil would agree to downgrade. It's unlikely, highly unlikely. But it's not there in the law. What you may have to do is divorce, remarry under customary law, and make a wife number one. Let me, before I come to Sunday, let my Babazana speak. Then.
Thank you, Elder. My question is, when a loose talk is said by a leader, let me say, I'll just use an example. A leader in the community, a leader in the country. Once you are 18 years, you can go and get married. You can go and stay wherever you want. It's not gazetted, it's not in the books, it's not an act. That's a misleading statement. Thanks to the Seventh-day Adventists, that brings things that are godly. Such statements have been uttered, and our youths have been confused because it's political and wanting to usurp what is right and turn it into something else. And even the acts that you have been elucidating on, they leave everything for us while they are defending a certain side. I'm trying to imagine even the poorest person in the rural areas. He needs to get married. She needs to get married. It's like now the marriage is for the elite, the rich.
But it's for free, Elder.
It's for free, yes, you are saying it, but I'm trying to imagine out there. People don't have the stuff that you are bringing. The acts that we are bringing are for us here. Okay. And then the other issue I want to put into consideration. Don't get married for a wrong reason. Okay. I'm saying you want to see a gentleman that has got a car,
a smartphone, he has a house, and you just want to walk in, you will walk out with a boot behind you. Me, my wife and I, whatever we have amassed up to this day, we started it together. I can't pull a portion on to my side. She can't pull a portion of what we have her side. It's for us, it's for our children. I'm trying to bring this to our youngsters, to our youths. Don't expect a rosy life. Even the roses have thorns. I'm simply saying, humble beginnings can take you far. The riches that you find there, they are not yours, as it has been explained. Because the one who started it, you don't know how he started that. So humble beginnings will make you enjoy, because we're saying we are moving from step 1, that's step 2, step 3. So that's an advice. But I'm still worried about these acts and the statements that are being said out there by our leaders, and our youths end up being led astray. But thank you for this which has been brought to us as a church.
Thank you, Elder. Do I need to comment on that? Okay, let's go to Sandy.
Okay, good afternoon, church. I have 2 questions. First one is, in the morning we spoke about the grounds of divorce and how the church says it's only through sexual immorality. What is the church standpoint in cases of abuse, physical abuse mainly? And then my second question, Aliza. All right. And then the second question.
I want you to stand.
Right. And then the second question is on, based off of Mrs. Runganga's question, in cases where the in-laws come maybe and they take everything and saying amandla omntanethu, is there any legal action that can be taken to,
Yes.
prevent that from happening?
Yes. Okay, that I'll start with the second one. It's actually specifically provided for in the Administration of Estates Act. In-laws have no right to come and take things from the surviving spouse's home. They have absolutely no right. And if they do, while they're doing that, just phone the police, they'll come, they'll stop them. They have no right whatsoever. If they believe they have a right, they must go to court and file their claim with the court. In fact, apart from that, no one is entitled to take the law into their own hands. So if you think you are entitled to anything, go and see a lawyer who will tell you you are not. But if he thinks you have a right, you can then file a claim. You can't just take the law into your hands. So the tradition, I know there are cultures where they believe kitchen mama, they come and just take everything, or they clean the sitting room. No, that's not legal. It's not. Even if you are married in terms of customary law, you can't do it. There is all assets of the deceased persons. They are supposed to be kept by the surviving spouse, who hand them over to the executor, the one who is appointed to administer the estate. And then in terms of the marriage, if you are suffering from physical abuse, emotional abuse, did you mention it? Economic abuse, psychological abuse. Yeah, in terms of the Domestic Violence Act, you can report the person to the police and they can deal with them. What is the church's position? The church's position starts from there is an assumption that if you are a believer, you understand the ideal of marriage. That's the first assumption. The second assumption, you understand what your role as the husband is, what your role as the wife is. So you are then expected to, none of the spouses, don't assume it's the husband who bashes the wife. These days the wives also bash the husbands. Counseling comes in, the elders, the deacons, they can counsel you. But if all else fails, what do you do? Do you divorce? No. The church manual says to protect yourself, you are allowed to leave the matrimonial home, right? And go and stay elsewhere. But if you go and see Elder Mdongwe, who will charge you fees, because he's not an elder when he's in his office, he's a lawyer, and you see him for a fee, he can then apply for the eviction of whoever is abusing you, so that they move out of the matrimonial home and go and stay elsewhere, and you remain in the matrimonial home. And you can also, you remain married, my daughter. Yeah, you remain married according to the church manual. Yes. Yeah. Which is why, you must choose your spouse wisely. So, you don't rush into marriage. You get to know the person. Everybody is nice when everything is nice. You only get to know the person when you start fighting. Then you know the real person and you understand. Trip of 3 months, you hardly know the person. We can start planning your wedding, fine. But the day you fight, you wonder, but, is this the person that I really married? That's why, it's a step that you must enter into circumspectly or with wisdom and intelligence, right? That's why the courtship must be long. But essentially, the church, the manual says, you will not be, it's not a biblically sanctioned divorce. And if you do divorce, you'll be removed from the church register. Okay.
Good afternoon, Josh.
Yeah.
Also to add on what you were saying, sir. So even if a guy is hitting me and almost killing me, I shouldn't leave the marriage.
If you what?
If a guy is hitting me,
yes,
and is almost killing me,
just
for the church, I should just stay in the marriage.
Yes, continue and finish, then I'll answer you.
Good deal.
So hlala phansi. The church is not saying you should stay in an abusive relationship. The church is not saying that. There is a difference between staying in an abusive relationship and divorcing. So you can leave that relationship and go and stay on your own. Yeah. But what you mustn't do is divorce. Because you can only divorce for what? Yes. Yeah? One thing that I will talk about, Pastor. The devil took me out of your sermon because I don't know what had happened to my car, so I had to attend to it and whatever. But church, let's have one meeting. I'm not going to take a switch and beat you up because that's domestic violence, auntie. But even if I do, you stay in the church. Okay. In any relationship, it takes two to tango. in any relationship, I'm not justifying abuse at all, and it can never be justified. But one thing that you should always know, and I talk from experience in terms of in my profession, we tend to look at the outcome, the end result, and forget the build-up. Where did it all start? Who started it? What happened? Right? Because unless you didn't do your courtship well, generally no one beats up somebody for no reason. I'm not justifying the beating up. Wait. So. Yes. So what it means is there are two things. It may mean you didn't do your courtship right if the character of the person is like that. Secondly, it may mean your relationship between the two of you was never good, or there are certain things you are doing that gets him to do that or gets it to do that. You hear people saying, mina nganganjalo wangijinja, or but what it means is, some things are a reaction to what is happening within the marriage, which is why there is something within marriage which I'm one of them, so I will confess, which we underplay, which is counseling. Because if you go to counselors, they will drill down to, to where it all started. And you may never know it yourself. You may think, where did it all start? They drill down to where it started, and they will be asking questions. Because counseling is not done in one session, it's done in several sessions. And they assist the one being who's seeking cancellation, and then they also assist the other one. So it's a tool that we must take advantage of. Yeah. So all we are, irretrievable breakdown. We were talking about it in the morning. Irretrievable breakdown. It came about where the legislators were saying, okay, maybe to give you the history of it was prior to the Matrimonial Causes Act it's a 1985 act. You could not divorce unless you were an innocent party. Yeah. So it was a no-fault principle. So the only time you could be allowed to divorce is if you can show that the other party or the other person is totally at fault and you did not have any, you are completely innocent. If the other party can show that you were doing this, that caused me to do this, then you would not divorce. Then the courts came up, then the legislators said, no, what we should look at is there a marriage here, or relationship is completely broken down? Right? But the process of breakdown can be anything. You have heard someone being killed, in the newspaper will write that they were fighting over what? 5 cents. You say, what? Umuntu ubulewe 5 cents kuphela? No, cents is not the reason. Right? There is something else that was happening, and yona yaphongubuya nje 5 cents. It was the excuse triggering the fight. But the animosity was already there. So it's you understanding that psychology, that there is something deeper than just the hitting of someone and so on. Understand that psychology, and you get to the root of the problem. What exactly is it? Yeah. Elton Dongwe wants to add.
No, perhaps I thought you were going also to add on something called the separation, whether it still applies. Because when you look before you could just go to divorce. There was something that they call judicial separation, whereby you'd separate as couples, right? But you are not divorced. So in other jurisdictions, other countries, it too applies where the parties are on separation, but they're not divorced. But here in Zimbabwe, we go straight to the point. You are still you then go for divorce. But the position of the church is very clear, as well as the Bible is very clear, right? That the ground for divorce is fornication, which includes child sexual abuse, all those things that are mentioned in the church manual. Yes, there might be physical abuse that we might be enduring, right? But when you then compare it, as you mentioned in the morning, that what sometimes what the law might say and what the Bible says and what the state says, what then do we take as precedents, as believers? As believers, we then go and point to the scripture. What does the scripture then say? So, yes, you may be allowed to divorce on other grounds. He's abusing me, is a evil person. But when you come on this other side of you being a believer, because you have chosen to be an Adventist, there's now a guiding principle that is the Bible that we then form.
And it places a responsibility on all young people. Never rush into marriage. Yeah, we tend to move in. It's as if it's a trial thing, but the idea, the biblical ideal is that marriage is permanent. So don't rush into it. Get to know the person, get to understand whether you agree on several things. Because, peer pressure, usumeleleni kanti indaba lingachati. Yeah, my Mr. Ncube,
Thank you very much. First, I want to appreciate this lesson. I think the last 20 minutes, it opened young people's minds. It's not just the white dress and the blue, but there's something that comes after that. Ukuthi nxa ungatopha ijwabu, anti inyama zonke lezi, ungatopha ijwabu lakho lapha e-church anti uzalihlafuna uJesu njani aze abuye. Now, what I find confusing about young people that when they are now in struggles, and the church is saying no to divorce, they'll be like, so i-church is that ngihlale lo muntu lo, kanti ufuna i-church yini? I want to blame the church. The church rules or policies to preserve marriage. That's why dating and is very important. Because once you go in, the church tries its best to keep you in marriage. Why? Because it is a holy matrimony. But my question is here, my elder. You said when you go into marriage, it's out of common property. I've got a house in my name. I marry my beautiful wife here. She moves into my house, and then I die. You said is my house a matrimonial home? If it's in my name alone, because you said it's communion. And then the following question twice return that to my wife. So having kids everywhere. My elder was saying, you will leave these things to their kids, That's a perfect marriage. But if you check here, most of us don't come from those marriages. You can attest, come there after our estate sharing a mess because our family not done. So I go around and have 7 kids, outside my marriage. I die. And then when the estate is being shared, only 2 appear, from outside. It's shared. 2 years later, from Mozambique comes in. From Malawi comes in. Father, how do you handle those cases when they keep doing so we are not getting anything? Where do we get there? So the first one is the matrimonial home. If it's my house in my name and my wife moves in and I die, is it a matrimonial home? When your name is not even there, does she get 100 of that house? Or can now come here and say, no, in Jomtanet.
Okay. Let me give you, I'll run away from your question and give you a practical solution, right? Write a will. Or do a trust like Zondo was talking about. The biggest challenges we have as lawyers and as relatives and as friends is a person who dies intestate, a person who dies without a will. Write your will. Because there's no argument that won't arise if you have written a will and giving it to Sandile. Oh, take it to her. What you are giving her won't even ask. Will simply give her the house, right? So write a will. Then there won't be that argument, right? That's what I would encourage you to do, right? In that situation, I don't know, Elder, whether it's it's a matrimonial home or what. But fortunately, the wife inherits the matrimonial home where she is staying in, and the household goods and effects. Actually, when I think of it, I think it would be regarded as a matrimonial. She would inherit that. Yeah. Then, in terms of the claims, right? There is actually a limit. It's in the law. When a person dies, the executor gathers all the assets, recovers what is owed to the deceased, pays whatever is owed by the deceased, and then files what is called a final distribution account with the assistant master, and then it's published in the government gazette, and it's also published at the master's office. I think it's pinned somewhere, and all those objections can then object. So there is a period within which they are supposed to do that. When that period expires, then the master confirms the distribution account. And when the master has confirmed the distribution account, the estate is then distributed in accordance with the confirmed distribution account. So if you then mushroom from Mozambique after 4 years, you have no claim. And then, well, the other side, I know it's an example, but you may want to know this. A husband has illegitimate children. A wife does not have illegitimate children. So those children that will come from Mozambique, whatever, that we don't know about, they are actually not entitled to inherit from your estate because they are illegitimate. Yes. So that's why in the morning, if you remember, I said customary law marriages which are not registered. No, listen to me, Mr. Ngo. Customary law marriages which are not registered in terms of the Marriage Act are only valid for purposes of the status of the children and inheritance, meaning they become legitimate and they can claim from your estate. It was a one-night stand in Mozambique when you were having a church conference there or something. That child is illegitimate. They have no right to the estate. They are only entitled to maintenance if they are below 18 years of age. That's the difference. So you have illegitimate children. Your wife has no illegitimate children. Okay. It has been sorted out. Okay.
So I was saying, so does this mean that if I got a half brother who is almost my age and my father is married in a civil marriage, if he dies, are you saying that is not entitled to receive any portion or any share of my father's assets?
The father can will it to him.
There is no will.
If there is no will, and it's a half brother who's not, because the status, it depends on the status. This can be half brother because his previous wife died, so it's still a half brother.
In this case, he's an illegitimate child.
They've no claim to the estate as long as they are above 18. They have no claim to the estate. Yeah, give it to him. Oh.
My question is on the regime, the marriage regime. So I understand my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. When you are married, rather, let me put it this way: you are a business person, right? Your business is a limited liability company, and it goes fast, right? The creditors want their money. And so I know in law, they remove the veil of the liability, and then it comes to affect your personal assets, but you are married. So in that case, to protect the assets of the family, particularly the wife and kids, let's say I'm the one who's the business person, what would you advise, or what regime would you advise that I enter into? Do I need to do out of community or in community, and without accrual, with accrual? What do you advise?
Okay. Form a trust. That's what I would advise, because a trust is a separate entity. So you can put all the assets in a trust. So it's a legal persona on its own. Yeah. And then just to go back to your, you are right, limited liability, whatever creditors, but how do they come to the personal estate? They can only sue you in person if they can prove that the way you ran the company was reckless or grossly negligent. That's when they can sue you as a person. Yeah. Otherwise, the separate entity of a company applies, so your assets are safe. But if you want assurance that we sure form a trust and put all the assets, your other assets in a trust, because it's a separate legal persona at law from yourself. And then you simply become a beneficiary. Your wife is a beneficiary. Your children are beneficiaries. Okay.
So let's say I've put my personal assets or our family's assets in the trust, can I borrow against those assets in the trust for business purposes?
No. Well, remember, it's a separate entity. That's where it can actually come to bite you, because that is a separate entity. It will have its own trustees. And, the trustees may lend you money, but they may refuse. So one of the disadvantages of a trust is that you can lose personal control of the assets. You can't even mortgage those assets to get a loan because they are no longer yours. They belong to the trust. That's why your creditors can't reach them. Yeah. So that's where roses have got thorns, and okay. I think give my elder, I think the gentleman next to my daughter, I don't know, they are trying to impress her, so it's okay. Ask the question. That's one way of being seen,
Okay, Elder, I wanted to ask, in terms of this separation issue, in that, let's say, yes, I think you already got it. Is it obsolete? Or then they can, because is it then absolute? That's basically my question. I can digress, but that's my question. Is it absolute?
Absolute permanent.
Yes, it is. Is it permanent, or is it an official thing that that maybe even the church has to be it has to be notified, or is something that that we can just agree? Let's say me and Kuka married, we can just agree with I, Hamba.
I don't think it has to be announced. The pastor can correct me, but you never get these things announced. But you can go and live separately. It's okay. It's not okay. I think I was speaking loosely there. I think if you actually know the spirit, or mean the spirit behind the church manual, marriage is supposed to be permanent. Marriage is supposed to reflect the love that Christ has for the church. And it's supposed to represent in miniature the relationship between the church and Christ. So when there is turbulence within the marriage, what we would expect you to do from the spiritual side is to approach the deaconesses, approach the deacons, approach the pastor, approach someone who is trusted so that they can assist you in resolving the differences that are occurring. One of the things that we have to admit as men, me included, is, and as women, there are certain perspective. You know, you may actually feel you are absolutely right. Uyahlanya lo muntu, uyazenzisa. But when you talk to another person, someone older than you, someone who is also led by the Holy Spirit, they may make you see another perspective, right? I've handled matters in my office. So sorry to give this example. It's because it's appropriate. I remember listening to one client who wanted a divorce, and I listened to her, and she told me, no, you have to be patient. I actually hate divorce matters, Elder. So if you want me to refer them to you, I will, because they are emotionally draining. So you have to let them talk. Literature word is catharsis, an emotional release. So they can talk for hours, and you have to be patient and listen. But at the end of the day, I thought, no, this marriage is not broken down. And I asked for one thing. Do you mind if I call your husband and talk to him? And she said, I don't mind, but I think our marriage is broken down, irretrievably. Okay. Person is a judge, actually. And then I spoke to the husband. Yeah, it's draining, emotionally draining as it was. But he then got to understand the perspective of where the wife was coming from. She thought, oh, okay, I never saw it that way. When you give us a chance, I think I can make this right. That was 15 years ago, and they are still married. So the when you get another person to then listen, and you empty yourself, they will show you a different perspective. So that's why I kept on saying, don't take the tip and believe it's the sum total of the whole. There are certain underlying causes that make a person behave in a particular way. Okay, you raised your hand 15 minutes ago. I think it's getting tired, so just behind Sister Percy there. Welcome, Percy. I haven't seen you for 2 years, I think.
All right. Good afternoon, church. Thank you so much, Council, for the lesson. I have a short question on the issue of civil law. You explained well that we adopt what tallies with our faiths because ours is a higher calling as Adventists. Now I understand, I don't know if I am wrong, that according to the civil marriage law, who can get married without lobola, right? So as a church, what do we say if two young people come together, they want to get married? How do we handle such issues of controversy or of ambiguity, where especially in the Bible, there is no clear verse which mentions that you must lobola, you must do that?
Okay. Paul says, I'm waiting for the church to digest this. You let me know when you are done, right? Okay. Paul says, if it is possible, as much as it depends on you, be at peace with all men. Right? Who best should you be at peace with other than your in-laws? So, what am I saying? Lobola is not a requirement for marriage under civil law. You can get married without lobola. But if your wife-to-be wants a bridal price paid, if their father and father, unless they are unreasonable, because they can charge an unreasonable price. They want lobola to be paid. Why wouldn't you? Because if it is possible, be at peace with all men. It's part of establishing a relationship. You are respecting them even if you don't believe in it. So my encouragement is respect their wishes and pay lobola. Yeah, yeah. Let me go to Mark Uzondo. I'll pick you last because I've given you an opportunity to talk.
All right. So I'm going to come back to what he asked. So you mentioned the other children who mushroom from different areas.
Yeah.
That's basically what I want us to maybe look at a bit with your assistance. So there's section 18 of the Wills Act. I'm just going to read just a small portion, and I want you maybe to help explain that. So it says, section 18 of the Wills Act in Zimbabwe addresses the effects of the subsequent birth, legitimation, or adoption of children on a will. The section is designed to protect the inheritance rights of children who are not provided for in the will because they were born, adopted, or legitimate after the will was made. Yes. So I'm just going to read up to that part. So may you kindly explain section 18 of the Wills Act? Because from what I'm understanding, it's not talking about children from the wife. It's just saying children, right? So if I'm hearing this will right, it's basically saying the children that are there can actually inherit. So I don't know, maybe if I'm reading this wrong, may you please explain it?
You are reading section what?
Section 18 of the Wills Act.
1, 2, subsection 18, subsection 1.
It's yes, says chapter 606.
Section 18, subsection what? Okay, can you read it again? I'm trying to. I've hit open the X. Okay.
Right. Itiona, if they were born after the will was written, so they are not in the will. There is a will, but the children are not there. These are the ones that mushroom from Mozambique.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what. I'm actually looking at the act because I didn't address on that. So yeah, I know the pastor said ask anything, so it's okay. I'll deal with that. If you look at section 18 of the Wills Act, it says if after the testator has made a will, right, a child is then born, unless the testator in the will, testator means the person who makes the will. The testator in the will specifically states that no other children are supposed to benefit from the will. To be assumed that had he known that these children were going to be born, he would have included them. So they would then benefit as if they had been included in the will. That's what it means. Yeah. So it means that when you are writing a will, if you don't want anyone else any other child to benefit, you must then say, yes, you must then specify that these are the only children that should benefit. Even if I have other children afterwards, they should not benefit. That will be respected. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. I'm answered.
Okay. Behind Mr. Zondo.
Thank you very much. The problem is we spent much of the time addressing issues of those people maybe who have married for wrong reasons, like what you said. Uh, uh, we don't understand why we get married. Now we get married without the knowledge. Then when you are in marriage now, you want or you want the church to address your lack of information. Let me start now. When we define love, we cannot define love because God is love. What we can only define is infatuation. Even if you can take a dictionary, the way the word love is defined, you can see that most of the houses, most of the families, the background, it was through infatuation, a strong feeling towards somebody. And now the feeling is gone. You are asking for divorce. No wonder why that question was raised here. You were talking about unbeliever, believer, unbeliever, and believer. Why not believers? We cannot address such questions in the manual. Why? We expect you, before you get married, why are you getting married? Who is love? Who is the originator of love? Thank you very much. You just paraphrased the verse that I had opened. Ephesians chapter 5, verses 21 downwards. I want you to take note of the wording there. Submitting yourselves one to another in the fear of God. Submit yourselves unto your husbands, as unto the Lord. Wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands, as unto the Lord. Seems as if the weaknesses for women is on submission. It's according to me. Let me go. No husband in any house can tolerate some form of disrespect. Every husband wants respect from his wife. If you give enough respect to your husband, then everything can be done to you. Let me go down. Let me go down and allow me to go down. For the husband is the head of the wife. The moment the husband becomes the tail, it becomes a problem. If the husband remains the head of the family, there is no problem in that family. Let me go down. Even as Christ is the head, he is the head of the church. Think of the church taking Christ as the tail. What will happen? And that's the problem that is happening in the church. Most husbands are now tails. They are no longer heads in the family. Let me get down. And he is the savior of the body. Therefore, if the church is subject unto Christ, so let the wives be to their husbands in everything. Husbands, love your wives. The weakness in husbands is what? Love. By nature, a man, we have difficulty in terms of love. We are seduced so easily. Like passes. There was that pic that showed us Obama was looking at what? You didn't comment on that. Now, the problem with the husband is what? Love. God is addressing that. Now, husband, love your wives. Also love the church. He gave himself for it. Christ gave himself. So, most husbands, you spend much of your day home with the point of this and that, bring no appreciation at home. The one appreciate even the smallest effort that you make. Now Christ gave himself. Christ gave himself. What is the church supposed to do? We are supposed to do what? Huh? We are supposed to what? To submit to what? To Christ. So. The problem, I heard that girl, she was screaming, I've been beaten, this and that. And you ask the person, why are you being beaten? And there was a lot of noise here. Ladies and gentlemen, if we are in here, if you get married for wrong reasons, you have a problem, and in the church as well. Now, let me go down.
Okay. Yeah, I think I have to stop you because of time, but you get the message. You know, the critical link there is unto the Lord. You know, the first relationship that you should make right is your relationship with Christ. If you get that right, the others are easy because they just fall into place. You know, because the wives are submitting to the husbands is unto the Lord, and the children obeying the parents is unto the Lord. Even the love that the husbands should have for the church is unto Christ. So we should get our vertical relationship right, and then our horizontal relationship will follow suit. After all, that's what it means to be subject to a higher calling. My time is up, so let me take one hand. Who you are already holding the mic? I think let me take this lady. She hasn't spoken. Please pass the mic. You can see me, but for a fee after this. No, here, yeah. Yes.
Sorry, my question, I wanted to ask when you talked about trust. You say,
Yes.
is there a limit where I can, like, of the number of trust that I can open on different conditions? Say
No.
maybe, all right.
No, you can have as many trusts as you want. What you may